Okay, so today we are attempting something, well, something pretty much impossible.
Chuckles. Just a small topic, then.
Just a small one. We are doing a deep dive into the United States of America. I mean, it's a nation whose history, its culture, and especially its sheer physical scale, it almost defies a quick understanding.
It really does.
We've pulled together this massive stack of sources, everything from, geography primers to cultural analyses, and we're going to try to give you the most critical, digestible insights.
And it's an essential task, because we are talking about a true giant. The USA covers nearly 10 million square kilometers, which makes it the third largest country on Earth.
Right, and home to, what, about 341 million people?
Around that, yeah. And it's long been known by that weighty nickname, the Land of Opportunity.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our sources here cover such a dizzying range of topics, trying to define this huge, varied place. Our mission isn't just to list facts.
No,
It's to synthesize how this federal republic and presidential democracy is actually defined by its extremes, in its geography, its politics, its whole personality.
precisely. Its core identity is that famous melting pot, right? Blending these deep influences from Native American, European, African, Asian, and Latino cultures. We are trying to understand how that unprecedented size translates into its famous commitment to freedom, innovation, and maybe most crucially, its constant sense of internal striving.
We absolutely have to start with that scale. The geography is not just big, it's a collection of completely distinct worlds.
Totally.
You can go from near Arctic conditions in Alaska to the genuine tropics in Florida and Hawaii.
The variety is stunning, and it has these profound implications for regional identity, for resource distribution. I mean, think about the boundaries. A fun fact from our sources really drives this home.
Okay.
Alaska alone has more coastline than all the other 49 states combined.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that geographical isolation and scale, that has to be what shapes its economy and its sense of independence.
For sure. And then you've got Hawaii, the volcanic chain born of the Pacific Plate, which is the only island state.
Hmm.
But the real insight, I think, comes when we look at the natural wonders that define the national psyche.
Right, the symbols of raw, natural power.
Exactly. You have the Grand Canyon in Arizona, this enormous chasm, almost 30 kilometers wide, edged by the Colorado River, and it's rightly celebrated as one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. The contrast is just spectacular.
And you can move from that silent, ancient chasm to the roaring force of Niagara Falls in the Northeast, a massive waterfall system it shares with Canada. These sites show a land just defined by dramatic geology.
And the climatic extremes are just as sharp. You can travel from Death Valley in California, which, consistently registers as one of the hottest places on Earth,
Yeah.
to the towering majesty of Denali or Mount McKinley in Alaska. It's the tallest peak in North America, standing over 6,100 meters high. It's a country that just encapsulates geological and climatic impossibility.
That is an incredible natural range. But the human ambition to manage and conquer that scale is just as defining, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
We go from natural scale to engineering. We talk about the Great Lakes, the largest group of freshwater lakes on the globe. These aren't just bodies of water, they are historic highways that fueled industrial growth and trade for centuries.
And looking toward the interior, the great arteries of the continent are the rivers. You've got the Missouri River, which is the longest, followed very closely by the Mississippi.
Right.
These systems don't just drain the center of the continent. They shaped migration, industry, the entire agricultural belt of the nation.
And the human effort to control all of that, to connect these landscapes, it results in structures like the Hoover Dam. I mean, an engineering marvel that harnessed the mighty Colorado River for irrigation and power.
Or leaping across the country, you've got the Brooklyn Bridge, a historic triumph that connected two huge urban populations, Manhattan and Brooklyn. And it just demonstrated human ingenuity overcoming massive distance.
So it's a national story of controlling nature for commercial and societal purpose.
Now, let's pivot from the geography of scale to the geography of history. Because the Northeast, that's where you find the foundational symbols of American democracy. These sites define the philosophical blueprint of the nation.
The crucible of the experiment.
Exactly. We're talking about Independence Hall in Philadelphia. It's not just where the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. It's where the founders wrestled with the very concept of creating a federal republic.
Yeah.
A government built on representation, not monarchy.
And the Liberty Bell is right nearby, a symbol of that newfound independence.
Right. And if you look at the intellectual foundations, you've got Harvard University, founded way back in 1636, the oldest in the U.S. It symbolizes that commitment to education and intellectual inquiry that really underpinned the revolutionary generation.
Then you jump to Washington, D.C., the planned capital, with the White House and the U.S. Capitol, the seat of Congress. These structures are designed to represent stability, the separation of powers,
Mhm.
and, of course, the Statue of Liberty, that iconic 1886 gift from France, welcoming people on the Atlantic side. But here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Okay.
If the Statue of Liberty symbolizes welcome and freedom, how do our sources reconcile that foundational ideal with the complex, often fraught history of immigration and exclusion that followed? That tension is just critical to understanding the U.S. identity.
That is a central tension. And our sources, in their analysis of the current government structure, they underscore the dynamic and constantly shifting nature of this presidential democracy. They do it by noting the specific individuals currently holding the executive office, which illustrates that this system is always evolving.
And that political bedrock in the East, it just contrasts so sharply with the definition of the modern American image, which so often comes from the West Coast.
Oh, completely.
The West Coast, California in particular, it's the global projection of American identity. You have the Hollywood sign, the Walk of Fame, instantly recognizable symbols that confirm the American film industry as like the dominant cultural export of the last century.
And the engineering here focuses less on controlling rivers and more on creating spectacle. Think of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, one of the most photographed structures in the world.
Or even the mystery of Alcatraz Island, the former notorious prison.
Right. And even the Space Needle in Seattle, built for the 1962 World's Fair, it points toward this boundless, future-focused identity. And we can't ignore the immense cultural weight of American entertainment parks.
No way. Disneyland in California was Walt Disney's first park, and then Walt Disney World in Orlando became the world's most visited theme park. The U.S. exports not just philosophy, but pure, massive-scale entertainment.
And that drive to create spectacle and reach massive audiences, it links directly back to the very idea of American innovation. The scale of the imagination mirrors the scale of the land.
So what's the connective tissue between the political idealists and the dream makers? Our sources suggest the genius of American innovation isn't just in isolated inventions, but in the relentless commitment to mass scaling.
That's the key insight. We list the great inventors. Thomas Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, who gave us the light bulb in phonograph.
Right.
But his true innovation was establishing the electrical grid, turning a gadget into national electrification. Henry Ford didn't invent the car, he invented the assembly line, transforming transportation through mass production.
And the legacy of innovation, it includes more than just industrial figures. We have the essential contributions of NASA mathematician Katherine Johnson, whose precise calculations were absolutely central to the space race.
And we have to mention the German-born genius Albert Einstein, who found refuge in the U.S. and completely reshaped physics while operating within American institutions. This spirit carries right through to the modern tech frontier with people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk, who is currently pushing the boundaries of space exploration with SpaceX.
So it's a nation built on both homegrown and internationally imported genius.
And all dedicated to making the small big and the big attainable.
That variety and ambition, it just carries through into the actual cultural landscape, the flavor of the road, the regional flair. You can trace the shift westward on legendary roads like Route 66.
The main street of America.
Exactly, stretching from Chicago to Los Angeles.
Route 66, it symbolizes freedom and movement, but it also reflects the fragmentation of the American experience as people migrated west searching for opportunity. It's a road that tells 1,000 different intensely regional stories.
And speaking of regional flair, you see America's love for spectacle everywhere. Cedar Point in Ohio proudly calls itself the roller coaster capital of the world.
Of course it does.
Then there's the monumental Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Missouri, a shining stainless steel curve symbolizing the historical gateway to the West.
And history is so intensely localized. Whether you're visiting the Alamo in San Antonio, the flashpoint of the Texas Revolution in 1836, or Graceland in Tennessee, the famous home of Elvis Presley.
The king.
These sites show how deeply cultural icons and historic struggles are woven into state identity.
But if we really want to understand the tension between the ideal of the Declaration and the reality of the nation, we have to talk about the people who fought to realize those ideals. The human element is crucial here.
Absolutely. The sources really emphasize the struggle for civil rights. Figures like Martin Luther King Jr., the dreamer and martyr, whose nonviolent philosophy confronted the nation with the hypocrisy of its own founding ideals.
And Rosa Parks, whose simple but incredibly courageous act sparked the Montgomery bus boycott.
And looking back even further, Harriet Tubman, often called the Moses of her people. She risked her life repeatedly to lead hundreds to freedom on the Underground Railroad. Their struggles are what truly define the meaning of freedom in the modern U.S.
And the fight for inclusion just continued. Through the suffragist Susan B. Anthony, who paved the way for women's voting rights.
And Harvey Milk, the first openly gay elected official and an enduring symbol of LGBTQ+ rights. They ensure that the we the people concept kept expanding.
Politically, these leaders defined the nation alongside giants who navigated moments of deep crisis or change. You have Abraham Lincoln, who preserved the Union during the Civil War.
John F. Kennedy, the visionary who launched the new frontier and the space age.
And of course, the significance of Barack Obama, the nation's first black president, symbolizing a profound, even if it's ongoing, shift in who can lead this republic.
And the reach of these figures and their nation, it extends globally through culture. I mean, the world consumes American film and music, defined by artists whose reach is just universal.
Think of the music legends. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, Michael Jackson, the king of pop, the soul-shaking genius of Aretha Franklin, the queen of soul.
And today you've got modern icons like Taylor Swift, a definitive songwriter of her generation, and Beyoncé, a complete cultural powerhouse.
They export American narrative and ambition everywhere.
In film, you have the eternal icon Marilyn Monroe, along with the defining directors. Steven Spielberg, who defined cinematic wonder with these massive, accessible blockbusters.
And Martin Scorsese, the master who examines the soul and the violence residing in the American experience. They tell the American story to the world.
Right. And finally, you can't overlook the unique role that sports play.
As a metaphor for American grit, focusing on national pastimes like American football, baseball, and basketball.
And the athletes are often the clearest examples of breaking barriers. Muhammad Ali, the greatest, was an activist who transcended sports.
Jackie Robinson, who broke baseball's color barrier, symbolized profound racial progress.
And Serena Williams, a tennis legend who just embodies power, precision, and grace. These figures exemplify perseverance, that constant striving to succeed against the odds.
So after all that, what does this all mean? We've covered everything from the immense geological extremes of Denali to the synthetic entertainment of Disneyland.
From the revolutionary ideals written in Independence Hall to the struggle for civil rights.
The USA is defined by its massive physical scale, its relentless mass-scaled spirit of innovation, and its complex, constantly evolving legacy of democracy and struggle.
It remains the world's largest economy, driven largely by technology and finance, and its official motto, "In God We Trust," really encapsulates that blend of ambitious capitalism and deep, inherited heritage. It is truly a nation of constant and often competing narratives.
And that leads us to our final thought for you to chew on. We've seen that the U.S. celebrates both its founding fathers, like George Washington, the ultimate symbol of foundational authority, and its modern cultural shapers like Taylor Swift, the ultimate symbol of modern influence and accessibility. Consider the span between the two. What does it tell you about a nation that treats the authors of the Declaration of Independence and the authors of global pop anthems with equal fervor as cultural icons? That's something to mull over on your own. Today, you've handed us a mountain of sources. We've got everything from geology reports to biographies, and our mission is to give you that ultimate shortcut.
High-value synthesis. And the topic is huge. We're talking about Canada.
One of the world's largest, most powerful, and culturally influential nations. And we have to start with the motto, don't we? Amori Usk Admire.
From sea to sea. It's not just a nice phrase. I mean, it's a geographic reality. The scale is the first thing you have to understand.
Right.
Our sources make it so clear. This is the second largest country on the planet, almost 10 million square kilometers.
And that scale requires some structure. So we're diving into a federal parliamentary democracy.
And a constitutional monarchy.
Which means King Charles III is still technically the head of state. It's this vast nation, but it's built on these, very specific foundations.
Absolutely. And those foundations have these globally recognizable symbols. It's officially bilingual, English and French.
And the symbols themselves are kind of charming, aren't they? The maple leaf, the beaver, the Canada goose.
Exactly. So we're going to walk you through that monumental landmass, then get into the icons, urban and natural, and finally the people who really built the country.
Okay, let's start with that landmass. The sheer scope. It only shares a border with one country, the United States.
But, and this is a huge push, but it has the longest coastline in the entire world.
It's an astronomical figure. Over 243,000 kilometers. Along 3 oceans. I mean, just try to picture that.
And here's the fact from the sources that it almost sounds made up. Canada has more lakes than every other country on Earth combined.
Wait, say that again?
More lakes than all other countries combined. It's functionally infinite. Water isn't just a feature there, it's the defining characteristic of the entire place.
So when you look at the major physical features, it tells the story of immense geological time.
Oh, absolutely. You've got the Rockies in the west, which are relatively young, these huge jagged peaks.
And then contrast that with the Canadian Shield.
Which is some of the oldest rock on the planet. It's the foundation of North America, really. Full of minerals, but it's a brutal landscape.
And out west, you really see that scale. The highest mountain, Mount Logan, in the Yukon, it's nearly 6,000 meters high.
A powerful reminder of how young and active those western ranges are.
And the power isn't just in the rock, it's in the water. I mean, everyone knows Niagara Falls.
Of course. One of the world's most powerful, shared with the U.S. But our sources pointed to something even more extreme, didn't they? The Bay of Fundy.
Between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, this is where you find the highest tidal range on Earth.
And we're not talking about a small difference. The water level can change by more than 16 meters. That's like a 5-story building.
How does that even work?
Well, it's all about the unique funnel shape of the bay. It basically resonates with the tide and amplifies it.
And the result of that incredible daily force, you get these things called the Hopewell Rocks.
The flower pot rocks, yeah.
Yeah.
In New Brunswick, there are these massive formations carved out by the tides. You can literally walk on the ocean floor at low tide.
And then a few hours later, they're just tiny islands. It's nature sculpting on a colossal scale.
So from that raw elemental power, let's shift to the places people actually seek out. The iconic landmarks. Starting out west.
This is the Canada you see on postcards, right? The Rocky Mountains, we're talking about Alberta. Banff National Park, which is Canada's oldest.
And its neighbor, Jasper. And you have to understand, these aren't just parks. They are vast mountain wildernesses.
And inside them, you find those images. Lake Louise.
That iconic glacier-fed emerald green lake. And Moraine Lake with that deep, deep turquoise blue nestled in the valley of the 10 Peaks.
What's so amazing is how they've made this extreme beauty so accessible.
That's the key, the Icefields Parkway.
Right, the road connecting Banff and Jasper.
Yeah.
Our sources call it one of the world's most scenic drives. It lets you get right up close to things like the Athabasca Glacier.
It really turns a mountain expedition into a controlled adventure.
Okay, so let's jump straight from that wilderness to the big cities. The contrast is what defines the country.
Absolutely. Take Toronto, you have the CN Tower. For a while, it was the world's tallest freestanding structure.
It's still this, 553-meter monument on the skyline with that glass floor that terrifies everyone.
But Toronto also has the Royal Ontario Museum, the ROM. It's the country's largest museum for world cultures and natural history. So there's real depth there.
And then you contrast that modern city with old Quebec.
Oh, View Quebec.
Yeah.
It's like stepping into 17th century France. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a walled city.
And it's dominated by that one building, the Chateau Frontenac. I think I read it's one of the most photographed hotels in the world.
It's an act of cultural preservation, really. And then you've got the capital, Ottawa, which sort of balances the two.
It's mystery and governance. You've got Parliament Hill, the Peace Tower. It's the seat of government. But what I love is what they do with their infrastructure in the winter.
The Rideau Canal, exactly. It's a UNESCO site, built for military reasons.
But every winter, it freezes solid and becomes the world's longest natural skating rink.
Right. It just raises that question of how often a harsh climate forces you to create something that becomes this unique cultural experience.
That seems to be a recurring theme. And a couple of fun facts to bring those cities to life for you. In Ottawa, you have to try the beaver tails pastries at the Byward Market.
A Canadian classic. And out in Vancouver, in Gastown, there's the Scheme Clock.
Which actually runs on steam and whistles every 15 minutes. It's amazing.
So from the settled south, we have to go north. To the far north and the Arctic territories. This is where you really understand that from sea to sea idea.
This is the elemental Canada. And the reward for going that far north to the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, Nunavut, is the Aurora Borealis.
The Northern Lights and Whitehorse in the Yukon is mentioned as a major gateway for seeing them.
And this is also where Canada hides some of its biggest secrets.
like Churchill, Manitoba. It's known as the polar bear capital of the world. The sources say it's the best place on Earth to see them in the wild.
And remember, we mentioned Niagara Falls.
I do.
Well, Nahanni National Park Reserve up in the Northwest Territories has Virginia Falls, and it is twice as high as Niagara.
Twice as high, but far less known. It's credible.
The scale just keeps going. Wood Buffalo National Park, which is so big it's in both Alberta and the NWT. It's Canada's largest park.
And it was set up to protect the world's largest herd of wild bison and the nesting grounds for whooping cranes, which are endangered.
The North also has these immense lakes. Great Slave Lake, the deepest in North America, and Great Bear Lake.
And while we're talking about the North, we have to mention the connection to the First Peoples, the Inukshuk.
Right, that stone figure,
Yeah.
built by the Inuit. It's a symbol for direction, for friendship.
A powerful symbol of navigating that kind of tough landscape. And you see that history reflected further south, too, like with the totem poles in Vancouver's Stanley Park. Each one tells a story.
And that connection to the people brings us to our next part. The nation's architects. The individuals who shaped Canada's identity.
You have to start with the political visionaries. Sir John A. Macdonald.
The first prime minister. The architect of Confederation back in 1867.
He literally forged the nation. And then you jump forward to someone like Lester B. Pearson, a Nobel Peace Prize winner.
He's credited with creating modern peacekeeping, which is so central to Canada's global identity, and he gave them the maple leaf flag.
But if you ask who shaped the country's social fabric, the name that comes up is Tommy Douglas.
The sources say he was voted the greatest Canadian of all time.
And for one reason, really. He's known as the father of Medicare, universal health care. That single idea completely reshaped Canadian society.
But you know, in building a nation, there are always figures who have to fight for recognition.
And that's where you have to talk about Louis Riel, the Métis leader, the spiritual father of Manitoba.
His legacy is complex, for sure. It involved armed resistance. But he is a key figure in the fight for Indigenous rights.
Absolutely. And then there's Viola Desmond, a civil rights pioneer.
She stood up against racial segregation in a movie theater in Nova Scotia long before the movement in the U.S. got widespread attention. And now she's on the $10 bill.
A permanent recognition.
Yeah.
And finally, you have that symbol of pure resilience, Terry Fox.
The one-legged runner. He started the Marathon of Hope to raise money for cancer research. He couldn't finish his run across Canada.
But the run continues in his name all over the world. It just embodies that national spirit.
And that spirit carries through to Canada's global influence, which is just, it's huge, especially in science and culture. Let's start with medicine.
You can't. You just cannot talk about 20th century medicine without Frederick Banting and Charles Best.
The co-discoverers of insulin.
I mean, think about it. It's one of the most important medical breakthroughs ever. It saved millions of lives. Banting won the Nobel Prize for it.
And we should also mention Alexander Graham Bell, Scottish-born, but he was a Canadian citizen when he was working on the telephone.
He's part of that legacy of innovation. And they've taken that legacy literally into space.
Roberta Bondar, Canada's first female astronaut.
And Chris Hadfield, the ISS commander, who became a global sensation for singing Space Oddity in orbit. It's that commitment to exploration.
Okay, let's pivot to the arts. The literary giants are just phenomenal.
You have Margaret Atwood, of course,
Yeah.
The Handmaid's Tale, and Alice Munro, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2013.
Her short stories about rural life are just masterpieces.
And then there's the visual influence. The architect Frank Gehry was born in Toronto. He designed the Guggenheim in Bilbao.
And at home, you have the Group of Seven.
Those landscape painters. They fundamentally changed how Canadians saw their own country. They took that rugged, harsh wilderness and made it a source of national identity.
But the thing that's really staggering is the sheer density of global superstars, especially in entertainment.
For a country with a relatively small population, it's unbelievable. In music, you have legends like Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Leonard Cohen.
And modern titans, Celine Dion, Drake, Justin Bieber, The Weeknd, bands like Rush, The Tragically Hip, the list just goes on.
And Hollywood is just packed with Canadians.
Ryan Reynolds, Jim Carrey, Keanu Reeves, Ryan Gosling, and the team behind Schitt's Creek, Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy. There's a certain sense of humor that just exports so well.
And finally, we have to mention sports. Ice hockey is the national winter sport. You have Wayne Gretzky, the great one, Sidney Crosby.
But I didn't know that lacrosse is the traditional summer sport. It's the oldest sport in North America.
And it's not just the men. Christine Sinclair, the soccer captain, has broken all sorts of records. It's across the board.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all of this for you. After this deep dive, what is Canada's core identity?
It seems to be a country of contrasts, really. It's bilingual, it's multicultural, and it's always balancing this highly developed urban life
Like in Toronto or Vancouver.
with this vast, wild, challenging nature of the Rockies and the Arctic.
A couple of final quick facts for you to take away. Because of its size, Canada spans 6 time zones.
6. And here's a detail I love. The word Canada actually comes from the Iroquois word Kanata,
Which means village.
which means village. So they went from a single village to the second largest nation on Earth.
That is quite the journey.
And that journey leads us to a final provocative thought for you to think about. The sources all mention how Canada is known for being friendly, for being polite.
Right, it's the stereotype.
It is. But given this country's history of world-changing innovation, insulin, peacekeeping, Medicare, and the immense creativity it produces, from art to music, what role does this vast, challenging, often remote landscape play in shaping a population that seems equally capable of both immense politeness and profound world-changing creativity?
Something to mull over until our next deep dive.